good afternoon. Welcome, Jeff Groff, Ron Schlecht. Jeff joins us from a decently sized financial institution here in the greater Philadelphia area. And we thought a fun topic for this edition of Figuring It Out would be doing the vendor dance, because we are a vendor. Jeff deals with vendors and he deals with us sometimes. So I think it's interesting to get both perspectives of that equation. So, one of the challenges we see as vendors is just getting into any new organization, starting the conversation. And, Jeff, people have probably done all kinds of interesting things to you to just get you to pick up the phone, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I get 10 to 12 calls a day and then twice that many emails every day. There are all kinds of hooks to try to get you to pick up the phone. I've had interesting caller IDs pop up. I'll get my favorite one is one that was labeled internal phone call. So I picked it up and talked to the guy because I'm like, I have to answer this. I said, the only reason I picked it up is because of your interesting caller ID. Yeah. Now that I know who you are, goodbye. But, so those things can work.
Good try.
Yeah. Emails tend to be like, I hope I'm not bothering you, or did I say something wrong? You haven't been referring to my, replying to my emails, etc. So those are interesting, trying to make you feel bad or guilty that you've not responded to one of the 50 emails that you get a day from, every product and service provider out there. It's a challenge to the point where like you dread looking at your inbox or answering the telephone.
Even as vendors, we're afraid to do that because we get calls and emails and everything the same. And, I'll have people reach out to me. And I think, Ron, you were sharing a story about even on LinkedIn, right? And they just connect with you, and then all of a sudden the full sales push.
And I love LinkedIn because it can be a good place to share ideas and connect with folks who you're going to network with. And I think now it's even more important to do stuff like that because we're not doing in-person networking events. But I had one from yesterday actually where the initial connection request was just like, I may be able to help. And I thought, well, I'm all for connecting with people. And, for the large part, I do a lot of the sales and marketing activities at BTB. So I generally connect with pretty much everyone. I probably shouldn't say that, but I usually do connect with people.
Get 500 more connection requests.
Yeah, right. And I usually, I'm more interested in connecting with the people that I've actually met in person, but I'm pretty open to it. And the conversation yesterday started with, can I interest you in, I should pull it up to be able to look at it, but it was like, can we talk about NetSuite and how it's the best CRM, blah, blah, blah platform out there? Well, we already have stuff that we're pretty heavily invested in at BTB Security. So my polite response was, no, thank you. I'm not interested in it this time. And I thought that was kind of like, okay, got your message. Right out of the gate, it was a little bit offensive because it wasn't even like, hey, I'm so-and-so. It was just, I connected with you. And like 2 minutes later, there's a message, hey, I want to sell you something. And then even my response, which was, not interested, it was met with that sales follow-up, like, oh, he got an objection. So the follow-up was, I don't understand why. That was really quick. It's the best platform out there. Just let me give you a demo. And what are you using currently? And it's like, I didn't want to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to waste anybody's time, which is why I said, no, I already know that I'm not looking for something like that. So thank you, move on. But it kept going and going and going. It was like, I love when salespeople don't say no. Obviously we're a little bit different because we're kind of like on both sides of this where, we have to do the same thing in sales. But I love when salespeople don't say no, but it gets to a certain point where it's like, why are you still following up with me? I clearly don't want this. And now you're irritating me. I ended up deleting the connection because I was just like, this person's not getting it. Like, I don't need it. I don't want to talk about it.
But who's even telling him to do that? Like that, or is that obviously there's more philosophy here and we're not drinking an adult beverage that would really help grease the the mental juices there. But I just hear that kind of stuff, and I think I would be appalled and really angry if one of our sales team did that. And I know you would too. So like, who's telling them to do that? Who said it's a good idea? And Jeff, you were saying like, you can't even be polite to people anymore. Like we
Right.
want to try to be good people and give folks a chance, but whoever thinks that's a good idea doesn't deserve politeness, frankly.
Right. And I think that's why a lot of this stuff actually appears to be effective, is because we try to be nice to people. We're brought up that way. We're taught that, don't speak when someone else is speaking, be nice, etc. And what happens then is you end up getting sucked into these lengthy phone calls where you end up having to, be very curtly hang up the phone. Yeah, it's difficult. It's bad manners at a minimum. Forget anything else. And I do wonder how many of these guys and girls are reading off a script. We also get the recorded calls that we know that somebody is pressing a button and giving the spiel, and then when you say something, they push another button. You're getting a different spiel, etc. So, I think what's also interesting is the attempt to create some kind of I've given you something, therefore you should give me something. So I see this quite often. You'll get an email that says, download this white paper on such and such a topic. You go download the white paper. Of course, about 30 seconds after you get the email and the phone call, and then they're like, oh, I see you downloaded our white paper. What can we do for you? And I'm like, nothing. I just got the white paper. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
And then a week or two will go by, and yeah, we see you downloaded the white paper. Yeah, what's going on? The basic message is like, we gave you something of nominal value, therefore you owe us the time and effort to have a full-blown sales call demo. And in fact, why don't you just sign on the same call? Like, we'll just get it all done.
Right.
So
let's just make it easy, Jeff.
it's creating that. I don't know what the phrase is, a bailment or something. There's some
I actually
term
got
for
into
that.
an argument with it was a marketing firm that we had years back, now probably going back 4 years or 5 years or so, because they were big on, let's put together this white paper or this ebook. They were all about creating ebooks, and then we're going to gate it. And that was the entire tactic. It was, we're going to put it behind, a sign up or a gate or whatever. And then you have all these leads. And I kept saying, I'm like, but they're not leads. Like it's not people that want our services. It's just people that want the information that's in that ebook.
Yeah.
Like, no, trust us. And I kept saying, I'm like, I don't want to do it. And I mean, the relationship, there were other parts of it that were not that great already, but that was one of the big things that I'm like, I don't agree with it. And I mean, we would put stuff out on our website, and I'm like, yeah, don't put it behind any sort of sign up form or anything like that. And they would get angry at me. They're like, we put all this time into creating this thing. I'm like, yeah. If we're putting it out there, we're putting it out there to share our knowledge and demonstrate that we have the expertise in doing this stuff, not because I'm going to use somebody signing up as a reason or count it as a lead. I'd never thought of them as leads. I'm like, to me, it's demonstrate that you understand what you're talking about. And then, if something comes out of it, awesome.
Yeah. Like it gets me thinking, like, what is the right way? And obviously we can't solve all of it, but Jeff, other than people, I mean, to me, that's it, right? Like, I just look at in my personal life, who I go to for my car work, for my plumbing. We all look around and say, what do the neighbors do? Neighbors that we know and like, and are kind of in our price range. And I'm sure there's some kind of peer conversations you have, but what's the right way for a vendor to broach this stuff and be, we've had a long-standing relationship. You inherited us, right? So you kind of got stuck with us.
I did, yes. In a manner of speaking, yes. But it's been a good thing.
Sure
I don't know what the right thing is, to be honest. I mean, really, the way that I go shopping is I talk to my friends, colleagues, coworkers, people that I already have established as a trusted source of information, and that's where I go. And then, our friend Google, we look there, search for things. I don't need anybody to call or email me. Do something to get your SEO in the right spot and get yourself up to the top, and I'll find you there. But I think the best thing for me when I'm shopping is have a good website that talks about your product and that it's easy to go find the information. Don't make me dig, don't make me register. You know, don't always dead end me somewhere that says someone will call you, and talk about it. Let me do my window shopping, up front. That's what I prefer. And I think that that's counter to all of the conventional marketing wisdom that is out there today, that doesn't work. You need to get in there and do what Ron suggested. People just like really hammering you, and if they get your email address, that's good enough. You've become a qualified lead at that point, and these companies will just continue, and your stuff will get moved all over the internet. I get calls from people I can't even fathom how they got my information.
I have some theories, Ron. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the flip side of that, right? Like and I think it's not like some deep dark secret, but I don't think it's as like no one ever told me about it. I just kind of saw it, right? That there's these databases that you can buy, and you see it when you Google company names, right? You put in Matt Wilson, BTB Security. I'm sure there's some, name whatever company. There's a bunch of companies that do that kind of thing, but like you'll see me, my title, my past employment. It's just people assembling information, but you can buy that, and then there's curated databases that claim, higher fidelity and higher accuracy, and they even claim to know buying intent, which I find tremendously interesting, because how are they gathering what that buying intent is? They have some proprietary method that they defend, and that's what you're paying them for. But these things cost a non-trivial amount of money. So then when people use them, right, you're putting in qualities, right? You're saying financial services in, Austin, Texas, with greater than 300 employees and over 100 million in assets under management, right? Like you can get to that level. And then I think they're just making a call thinking I can just, I can do business anywhere and everywhere, which funnily enough, we've had some limited success in doing not that, but something in that same vein, right? Like building, totally reaching out of the blue. So I think some people do, I won't say benefit. I'll say that there is a need for that kind of thing to a certain extent, but it does make me feel icky sometimes to think about all the information and how it's moving around.
Sure. I think those companies succeed because the prospective buyers of these lists want it to be true. They want to boil down
That's
the
true.
sales, the sales, cold calling thing to be something that's going to be productive, despite, what is probably the contrary. I'm sure that there is, if you close one deal for 100 calls, you're probably pretty happy with that.
I don't think I've ever heard it put that way, but I think that's probably it. Like everybody just wants it to be true, because the term I was thinking of earlier was almost like desperation, right? Like there's a desperation that someone who reaches out to Ron in the way that he or she did, like there's a desperation in their either the way they work or their job specifically, right? Either that's a self-imposed desperation, or their job says you get 100 leads today or you're gone, right? Like there's some average they need to hit.
Sure. No, I'm sure that's a very mercenary business. They're probably largely on their own, and you eat what you kill, and so I think that lends itself to sometimes inappropriate behavior. And and a lot of those products are like you buy it, you pay for it, they're gone. Like it's not like the relationship we have that has been going on for years and years, and it's communal, mutually beneficial, and you guys get paid, I get service, and and we continue on. So
yeah, I think the only other thing we didn't touch on was kind of the, once that relationship's established, they get in, they get some kind of conversation going. You might be interested. You might even do business with them. But I think it's something that you relayed before, Jeff, is, someone sends you say, hey, I need your SOC 2 to, just as part of my due diligence process before I bring you in as a vendor. And then they'll send you something totally unrelated. They'll send you a SOC 2, but SOC 2 for an unrelated business component. And that's, that's a vendor that just, your term when we chatted a while ago was like, they just don't get it. But to me, it's more than they just don't get it. They're actively, intentionally subverting whatever it is, right? Like they're either too stupid or willfully ignorant.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I may not put it quite that harshly, but I would say maybe they don't get it is probably a good starting
Right. I
point
didn't give you
there.
those words. Yeah.
But I think the challenge that we have now and really in financial services and really almost every industry now is that companies are becoming increasingly dependent on third-party providers. You know, back when I started in IT in the late 70s, you could buy the hardware and that's about it. Like everything else, you were on your own. Oh, here's an assembler, here's a compiler. Good luck. Like, you know, let us know how you make out. And so you didn't have frameworks, you didn't have technology stacks. None of that existed. Now, today, what we're seeing is we're going from a world in which you had to create everything almost literally from scratch to something where I'm cobbling together third, fourth, fifth party products in order to, you know, make my service work. So, you know, we look at things now where, you know, your average web page, you've got some kind of JavaScript framework, you've got React, you have jQuery buried in there somewhere, and then God knows how many different tracking beacons that you have plugged in that will phone home and talk to other places. And then when you get back to the first step back, you have no idea what things are running in that environment that are leveraging web services, microservices, whatever you want to call them. So the challenge that I have as a purchaser of, you know, computer services, web services, et cetera, is I need to understand that whole supply chain from the person I'm actually writing the check out to all the way upstream to the various places that are touching the data. So what happens is what we see is the more mature cloud services, they get this. Like they would never say, yeah, we're a cloud service, we're on AWS, here's the Amazon SOC, see you later. You know, we're on Amazon, therefore we must be secure. And they will tell you, they will list the 10, 12, whatever subservice providers that they use. They will also usually have some statements about their own internal vendor management program, giving you a sense that they try to vet out each of these subservice providers. So it's a very long supply chain, whereas in the old days, you would buy a piece of hardware and you get some free software thrown in and that was it. So the complexity is great.
Sure.
And if you don't know these things, you can, you know, these companies can invariably get into trouble. You know, you think about you know, some frameworks that have come up recently where there's a vulnerability in that framework. Well, you may not know um, that your service provider even uses that. And even worse, they may not even be aware that they're using that particular component. So they don't know whether to upgrade, not upgrade, et cetera. So, and we've all seen these. They're, you know, it's in the news every day. There's some product or component that is used by a broad swath of people on the internet, has a problem, it's got to be fixed promptly. How much do you worry about that? But I think the more mature companies get that, they understand it. They understand the shared responsibility model, which is very important. What's interesting is that despite how clearly and painstakingly those roles and responsibilities are laid out in terms of service for the big players, your, you know, Amazons, of course, Azure and Google, go to very great lengths to tell you what you need to do, and they will tell you what they will do. And yet we still, you know, run into providers occasionally that don't understand that. They don't address the complementary user entity controls that they are required to put in place. So, and so it makes it a very time consuming process to buy a product that is doing anything of consequence for you. Obviously, we don't go through the same level of due diligence for every single vendor, but if you're holding our data, you know, we're going to make really sure that you're taking care of it all along the continuum. So that is my speech on shared responsibility and on you know, people trying to leverage other people's socks when it's not appropriate.
I think I've seen them nowhere near as recently as you have, Jeff. But back when I was doing the assessments and some due diligence work, I remember a time that I got a physical. This is when they were SSAE 16s, and it was an SSAE 16 for a data center physical security controls, and that was it. That was all that the scope of the SSAE 16 was in relation to. I remember getting it and saying essentially what you said, Jeff, like, thanks for sending it, but this is clearly not at all what I want, because you're getting my client's data. I'm here to ask you about the data flow, your general control environment, policies and procedures, and you hand me an SAE 16 on a physical security controls for one of your many data centers. This doesn't make any bit of sense. So it's as old as time. So
yes, and the standards are continually changing and evolving and being renamed. At the end of the day, it's all the same thing. Are you taking care of the data that you're entrusted with? But you have your SAS 70s, and then you go to SOCs and SSAE 16 and 18 and the various numbers and types of SOCs that are available. And then you have the SIGs and the SIG lights, and there are just so many standards, and I can understand why people that don't live in that world maybe do not really get that. I would argue that they should. I think it's just an integral part of selling any cloud-based service, is being aware of this. Just like every other business, if you're a plumber, you need to know the plumbing code. If you're an electrician, you need to know the electrical code. So, it's an explanation to me, but not an excuse as to why people don't embrace this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I think to put a bow on things, it's conduct yourself as you. Is it too much to ask to treat people like you would like to be treated? Right? To be honest and upfront and decent, and listen to what your prospect is saying. Because I think of it as if Ron or I caught wind that our sales team was just continuing to pressure people in that way, you're representing the company, and you might be shutting off a prospect. You might not have won this project with them, but if you act a certain way, you'll never win any project with them. So I'd rather part as friends and just agree that we can't do business right now than to make anything more of it. So
right, wrong, or indifferent. And I have no way to judge otherwise. I assume that any dealings that I have with any rep of a company, sales, technical, whatever, I assume that is representative of the company as a whole. And therefore, if they create a bad impression, it's not just on them. It reflects poorly on their company as well. So, I've been fortunate in that the vast majority of our vendors, good people all across the sales cycle. Other companies, not so much. So, it's just, but I think you're absolutely right. These people, reflect the company that they're representing. And, I think it's fair to make those assumptions that, it's not just one bad apple, like that can't exist in a company that, does not have, high values.
Agreed. Well, Ron, thank you for your time. Jeff, a huge thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to spend with us. I hope we solved some issues and shed some light on some things for people, and maybe some.
It was more or less therapy. I don't know if we really solved anything, but it was very therapeutic.
Just cathartic, yes.
It is true. Well, thank you, Jeff. Please be well and enjoy the holiday.
Okay. Yep. Same to you guys. So long.